Welcome to the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Scott Aaron, and each and every week I'm going to come to you with short, simple, and powerful tactics of how you can grow your network marketing business, brand, bank account, and impact on those around you. And just remember, network marketing is not easy, but it can be made easy with simple steps to create the success that you truly deserve. Welcome to episode 152 of the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. And if you are a new listener, then welcome. And if you are a returning listener, then welcome back. And as always, if you are a seasoned entrepreneur, online business owner, or network marketer, or even new to your profession, and you are still building your business through the primary means of Facebook and Instagram, and you are not yet harnessing and leveraging the power and potential that LinkedIn could have on your business, your bank account, and your impact, then head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can set up a free 15-minute call with me where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can potentially work together. So I want to preface this episode with the fact that there are certain times in your life where you kind of have to pinch yourself in the sense that there are people in your life that you look up to. You have, the people that you admire. You have the people that move you forward. And the person that I'm bringing on with you guys today is someone that I've been looking up to for nearly the last 5+ years, ever since I picked up her and her husband's book, Go for No, which radically transformed my life because, as you guys have heard my story, I was going through this transition in my business and I was getting really tired of Facebook and Instagram, and I jumped onto LinkedIn and I realized that I just need to be connecting with more people. And as I was going through this transition, I picked up this book, Go for No, which completely solidified and gave me the permission that I was seeking, as far as I shouldn't be going for the yeses. I should be going for the nos and talking to as many people as possible. And this is one of those episodes where I know you guys have heard me mention Andrea's name so much. You've heard me mention the book so much that I thought that it would be an even better idea, instead of just mentioning her in the book, why not invite her onto this podcast so she can talk to you guys? So I'm going to stop talking because I don't want to take up any more of your listening time, but also I want to give more time to Andrea so she can educate and inspire you. So with that being said, Andrea Waltz, welcome to today's episode.
Hey, Scott. Well, thank you so much. I am so excited to talk with you today.
Me too. And I just want to thank you just for the openness and also the availability that you have made yourself for me with our external conversations, even outside of this podcast, and the things that I've learned from you, and just the availability that you give to other people to connect with you. So I just wanted to first thank you for that. And also, I just want to thank you and Richard for writing this book. And, I know you've been told this before, but the book, it's incredible. It's transformed my life. And I know that many of my listeners, if not all of them, have at least read this book once, because I make it a requirement in my coaching program, because they need to understand the principles of going for no. So before we get into the book, for those that don't know much about Andrea Waltz and how she got started, before the speaking, before the writing, before the go for no, and everything that comes with it, from your humble beginnings, where did you get started off with before you went down this entrepreneurial path?
Got it. Well, so I grew up in Southern California and in Orange County, and a really ritzy, super ritzy neighborhood location, except that my parents were very poor. So we were the poorest people in this really wealthy enclave, and which actually that has nothing to do with anything. That's just background. But I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach got a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. This was before CSI became like a thing, before it was even on TV. I wanted to be a crime scene investigator. That was like my dream. I wanted to catch bad guys. And while I was in school, I ended up getting, I worked retail like through my high school years. And when I was in college, I got a job with LensCrafters and I started working my way up. Kind of what happened was like right when I was graduating, I got an opportunity to be an assistant retail manager with the company. And in the meantime, my dream job, what I thought my dream job was, they said, there basically are no jobs. Like it's a very rare position. And I wanted to be a crime scene investigator with the sheriff's department. And they were like, well, you can become a non-paid intern and maybe do that for a couple years. And then hopefully a position will open. And I was ready to make money like your typical college student. I said, that is not, I have this company over here offering me a full-time manager position. I'm just going to take that. So I took that job and promotion and ended up getting promoted again. And by the age of 23, I was a general manager. I was like the youngest person in the company's history running a $3 million location. And that is where Richard and I met and where he kind of educated me on entrepreneurship. He told me basically like we could, because we were in training and even though I was running a store, I was also involved in new hire orientation and doing sales training and customer service training and even training on optical type stuff. And I really loved it. Like I just loved the stand-up training idea. And he said, Richard said, we could quit our jobs and we could launch our own company and be trainers from the outside. Companies pay people to come in from the outside and they pay them a lot more than we're making as far as our salary. And I had never even considered that was possible, that you could have your own business. It just never even occurred to me, but it seemed like a cool, interesting idea. I had nothing to lose. And so the next year we kind of plotted and planned and strategized. And the next year we quit the company. I did quit first. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And not recommended, by the way, but I guess I was ignorance on fire, as they say. And that was kind of the beginning. I had literally that saying, like, when you jump off the cliff, you'll build your wings on the way down. That's exactly what I did. I was just like, okay, we have to figure out how to get clients. Okay, we have to figure out how to communicate with them. I mean, literally, it was like every step of the process I had to learn as we were going and as we were slowly running out of money.
So what do you think, going from, working in corporate with LensCrafters and then meeting Richard and then him kind of planting that seed of, we can do this ourselves before stepping into entrepreneurship, but what would you say was the biggest lesson that you learned working for a large corporation like LensCrafters that you were able to take into the business that you and Richard ended up starting?
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting question. I have to think about that because nobody's ever asked me that before. I guess, probably a customer service mindset. And I really appreciated what you said in the beginning, which is, me taking the time to, you and I having our conversations that we've had over the last few months. And I come at our business really with a customer service attitude that working in retail, like my whole young life. And then at LensCrafters, we were extremely customer focused. It was all about serving people and selling for sure. But they were very, very big on customer service. And so I guess that's kind of what I brought to the party in our business, was just trying to really serve people and to treat every person with their individual needs and that as an individual, not just as a paycheck or as a dollar sign, if you will.
So do you see, because again, when you guys started the whole Go for No movement, and you can be transparent and honest with this, and this is something that you and I talked about, that it didn't catch on right away. Like you said, it was kind of like ignorance on fire. You wrote the book, and you started speaking, but it took a little bit of time for it to kind of have that big aha moment where the book became a movement in itself. But let me ask you this: with all of that being said, what do you think is the biggest difference, or is there a difference in the way that people are doing business now with the human connection aspect, and connecting and forming relationships and going for no, as opposed to when you guys initially launched this book and this theory in the early 2000s?
Mm. So what's the difference today in building business versus when we first started?
Yes.
Yeah, so much really has changed, and I think when we first launched, we were so small and so ridiculously outnumbered and outgamed basically from our competitors, right? Our competitors were like these huge training companies with actual budgets and actual offices. And so everything I felt like was done in order to kind of make ourselves look bigger than we were or better than we were, and which was hard because we were on a shoestring budget. So we didn't even accomplish that, even though that was my goal. And we still were able to get our foot in the door with some of these companies and survive. But back then, there's so much less transparency, I think. And today, I feel like people with social media, um, it's business is done almost so much more transparently and on a more human level than it was back then. Back then it was kind of like B2B selling it was really about companies, and you had everything was very professional. And I feel like today, not that things aren't still professional, but that there's so much more transparency. You come to know people that you are doing business with, not just for the problem that they want solved or the issue you're happen to be helping them with, but like who they are, what they do on the weekends, what their passions are. And that has really allowed us to connect with people on so many different levels, not just a business level, but it's opened these really interesting doors to be able to form connections.
What would you say, in your opinion, with all of the people that you've spoken to, all of the speaking engagements that you've done, all the trainings you've done, is there a similar or common mistake that you still see people in sales, in B2C and B2B, making now that they were making back when you guys first started?
Oh, yeah. I mean, probably the biggest thing is, well, there's a couple mistakes I see made. And one is still making things overly complicated. This kind of goes back to that trying to make yourself look bigger and better than you are, and not just speaking plainly. And it's kind of like that avoid the corporate speak, avoid the language, avoid coming at people seeming like really overly complicated. I see that still made today, that mistake. Just to really explain to people what problem you're solving so that they can understand it and identify with it really quickly. And then the second thing, Scott, is just, and this is human nature, and we're constantly battling this, but it's persistence and it's follow up. And still, people think, um, they think they get a no, and it's like, okay, that no means never. Next, I'll find someone else. And if you have this qualified, targeted prospect who has a need and you can solve their problem, it really is. You've invested all this time, and so let's turn that invested time into profitable time. How do we stay in contact with this person, create value, and eventually come to do business with them? Still, people aren't persistent. They don't stick with people long enough So the best of the best do, but that's still a huge issue.
So that leads me to my next question, because this is something that I struggle with all the time, because you see people that they're just not consistent. They don't give things the amount of time that they need to. They want to hit the lottery. They want shortcuts. They want to take the easiest road possible. So what is it with people in sales, even back in the day compared to right now, that is still having them be so personally offended by the answers that they get from people? But also, why do you feel it's so hard for people to really grasp the understanding of not only just going for no, but for never quitting and continuing to move forward no matter what?
Yeah, well, I think you kind of almost said it in your question, which was people do want shortcuts and they want it to be easy. We all want it to be easy, right? That would be great. And unfortunately, it's just that's not how the world works. And it you have to be. I think Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. You and I are fans of his, and he's always talking about patience. And if there's one thing I learned, it is absolutely things take longer than you think. And it's funny because I'm looking back at this decade and that's behind us now, and just going like, oh my God, I've accomplished so much. And yet at the same time, it took a long time for some of these things that I wanted to do to come about. It took a long time for Go for No to become what it was. It took us 10 years we wrote it, in 1999. It hit the bestseller list in 2010 in sales. That took things take a tremendous amount of time. And so we do want the shortcut. And if we don't see that success is right there, right? If we can't kind of taste it, if we don't see it right on the horizon, it's like, okay, this isn't going to work. And that is the exact opposite of everything I've experienced. It always takes longer than you think. You think, oh, by next year, my business will be making X number of dollars and I'll have this and this will be happening. And by next year, oftentimes it's not. But things are, what you can't see is all of the stuff that you're building, all the seeds that you're planting will come about. And so many other things are transpiring in that time. You are changing, you are growing, and you are planting all these seeds, and people are starting to know who you are, and they know what you're doing, and you have all of this momentum that you can't see. And that's what's so sad, is that you're building all this underneath momentum. It's almost like I think of the analogy of just, like a tsunami coming, where it's, you can't see it. It seems very calm on the surface, and yet you've got this underlying wave coming. But then on the surface, we say, well, nothing's happening because I was supposed to be making X number of dollars by this date, and it's not happening. So this thing isn't working.
It's so interesting, because I think a lot of the listeners needed to hear that, because they see all these people write books, and that I've written a couple books. And when I launched my book in March of 2019, there was a lot of buzz around it, and it hit bestseller in a few weeks. But I wasn't even expecting that. But in the same respect, you and I both know that so many people are writing books now. But you guys wrote this book in 1998, when a lot of people, they were always writing books, but there was no Amazon ads or Facebook ads. There was no social media at that point. LinkedIn hadn't even been created yet. And yet you guys never gave up on the dream and the book and the mission and the vision and the value of what you brought with it. And 11 years later, you guys hit bestseller, and people think they see all the success that people are having right now, and they're like, oh, Andrea and Richard, they're cleaning it up and they're so super successful. But they see the glory, but they don't know the story behind those 11 years of when you were in the trenches of really moving this book and this vision forward. So let's talk about that. What is something or a few things that people don't know about when you and Richard wrote this book in those 11 years that got you to where you are? Because there are things that we do when we're so passionate about something. So what is something that you guys did after this book was written that kept you guys moving forward? Because do you know how many people out there have written books and they didn't hit bestseller, no one was buying their book after 2, 3, 4 years, but that never stopped you guys. And 11 years later, you hit bestseller. So what was that thing that you guys did that continued to propel you forward, even though it took you 11 years to hit that bestseller?
Right, right. Well, we had a lot of stuff. We had a lot of failures along the way with this book. The first of which was that we, like everything that we did back then, we bootstrapped it. So we decided that it would be really smart to not hire a graphic artist to design our book and that Richard would do it, which was not good. And so we had this great, what we thought was a great little book, great, message. And the very first thing that we did, well, first of all, we believed in the book, and so we put our money behind it, as much money as we could. So one of the first things we did was we sent out 500. We bought mailing lists of VP of sales in all different businesses and industries. We sent out 500 copies, which cost, we're buying the books, right? We're printing like 5,000 copies. So we're buying the books, we're spending money on first class postage and the whole thing, and sending this out. And it was like crickets. We got one order. We were doing this kind of with a mind for speaking about the topic, but also sending out like a bulk order form with the book. And we had one company order 50 copies from us, but out of the 499 others, those were basically all no's. And so we thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong with what happened? We thought at first, we were kind of hoping that maybe like the post office threw them all in the garbage, but we got the one order. So then we knew that didn't happen. So we had this, what we thought was a success, but then this failure. And so we just spent the next few years basically like giving copies away to everybody who we thought was an influencer. And of course, back in that day, we called them influencers, but there was no social media. In our heads, it was like, who has a team of people, who is like a sales manager or a sales leader or a top MLM, upline person, and we would give away copies. So we put money behind it, and that's just a fact of book marketing. And I guess you could look at it like, instead of just running Facebook ads, we were giving away physical copies. The next thing that happened was probably the biggest thing that happened after that was we went to a conference, gave the book to this guy randomly who was sitting near us. I knew he was in sales, and he called us a couple days later and said, he goes, I want you guys to know I got your book home and I almost threw it away in the garbage. And he said, but I started reading it, and by the time I was done, it's like, you guys have written the greatest sales, like one of the greatest sales books ever. And he said, but are you open-minded? And we were like, yeah. And he goes, and this is kind of like, are you coachable, right? Are you open-minded? We were like, yeah. He said, well, you have one of the worst covers in the history of publishing. He said, if you will change the cover, I will order 5,000 copies. And we said, absolutely, we'll change the cover. So we hired an actual book cover designer who designed covers for all of these great professional speakers and changed the book. And now we were really excited because now it was kind of like the book had this resurgence in our mind. Not that we had given up on the message, but we didn't understand what was wrong. And that was a big fix. Now we were behind it more than ever. We ended up getting an agent. We had an agent in Hollywood who was helping us with a screenplay that we were writing. He gave us an agent, a friend of his who represented books in New York. This guy went to all of the big publishers. He ended up getting an offer, or almost an offer, from Simon & Schuster. The offer was supposed to be faxed over to us, and we're waiting and we're waiting, and it never comes. And we asked the agent, like, what happened? He said, you know what? They decided you guys didn't have a big enough platform, so they pulled the plug at the very last minute. They're not going to publish your book. And in that moment, we said, okay, they're not going to publish this book. We know this book is good. So our new goal is to sell 1 million copies. We don't know how long that's going to take, but we're going to sell 1 million copies for as long as it takes.
So it was not an overnight success, and there were definitely some speed bumps that you guys had to overcome. And I think the big thing that you said is being open and coachable, because you know, you've actually co-authored another book with Ray Higdon, who's an amazing network marketing coach, called Go for No, but it's the network marketing version, because I think what
Mhm.
you guys realized, you were writing this book for people in sales, and you realized that as you started to get traction in the network marketing profession, that obviously network marketing is sales. And you and I both know there's a lot of companies that try to cover up and they call it sharing, but
Mhm.
we know it's sales. It's sales and recruiting. That's what network marketing is. It's just taken a different shape where these people are their own bosses and they can create whatever income they want. But the problem is not everybody is open and coachable. They do what's comfortable. They stay in their own lane, and in respect to whatever they did in the beginning, even if it's not working to its best capability right now, they're not willing to try something different. So let's talk about that in respect to sales, marketing, network marketing. How important is it for that person that really wants to have a great impact and build a great business? How important is it for them to be coachable?
Oh yeah. I mean, it is so huge. And I think that all of the obstacles that we have had um, have stemmed from us trying to do everything ourselves and not paying attention to, not, that whole success leaves clues thing, not looking at best practices, what are other people doing, and just not to copy, because I think that going your own way a lot of times can be very effective, especially today because the marketplace is so crowded. But success leaves clues, and so when you're open and you are coachable to, hey, don't reinvent the wheel here, like just do what works, but find the little areas where you can put your personal spin on things, but do what works. And we have learned this lesson more times than I would like to admit, because we are always like, oh no, we're going to do it our way. We're going to be different. And so absolutely, I think in business, in any industry, but certainly in network marketing, what I have learned just from my observations of the business is, yeah, there's some fundamentals that if you can master those, you don't reinvent the wheel. And so I think coachability is huge. Having that open mind, it's really going to save you so much time and heartache.
So let me ask you this. The book is incredible, and obviously, for those that haven't read it, they're going to read it after this. What is something that you and Richard took away? Because obviously, when you write a book, you have the idea and the concept of what you want this book as far as a point to get across. You have an idea of what that you want that point to be, where people are like, yes, 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 they're taking that away.
Mhm.
But there's always something different that comes out of it, because sometimes you get something out of something that you never expect. So let me ask you that. What is something that you and Richard heard people were taking away from this book that you never expected them to take away from this, with something that was written in it, but you never thought that was going to be the big thing, but it ended up being much larger than you guys could have imagined?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so it well, first of all, it really is always fascinating to me what people will pick up on, and this goes for our speaking as well. I mean, if we do a 60 or 90-minute presentation and we come down and somebody will come up to us and say, "Oh, I really love this piece on, blank." It's always fascinating to me what people will pick up on out of a thing where, to me, you can't help but have your favorite parts, right? As a speaker, and even with the book, I have the parts that I love, and I think like, oh, everybody else should love this piece. And what people find is always fascinating. Probably the biggest thing that I hear that has surprised me is the device that we used, um, to uh, to kind of make, well, first of all, the book is a fable, and what happens is the main character he goes to bed, he's dreaming, he hits his head, he wakes up. Now this is all kind of, keep in mind, it's like a fictional fable. He wakes up in this fabulous house. He doesn't understand who it belongs to, he doesn't understand what's happening, and he ends up realizing that the house belongs to him, but it's a him 10 years into the future. And this particular version of himself is wildly successful. And so this device that we came up with was, what if you could meet a future version of yourself, a 10 years in the future version of yourself? What would that version tell you? Like, what would be the wisdom? And in this case, the wisdom that this version of him shares is go for no. And what happens in the book is they each have this experience where they learned the go for no message. The guy that's not so successful in the real world didn't really pay attention to it, but our guy in the future, the 10-year version, he really embraced go for no, and now he's living in this fabulous house and wildly successful. And so people have really much more than I thought, because to me that was just kind of like a nice device, an interesting device to make the point of the go for no message. But people are really into this idea of, what would my 10-year future me look like? What's the wisdom that version of myself could share or would share? And so it is really powerful, because I kind of forget about that.
No, it's so true, because everyone focuses, and you should focus on what's right in front of you, but a lot can happen in a year. A lot can happen in 5 years. I think about where I am right now, 6.5 years after, because network marketing completely changed my life when I said yes in May of 2013, and now coming up on almost 7 years later, my life is completely different. It opens up this door to limitless potential where you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. But so there's two things there's so many things I love about your book, but there's two big things that I really latched onto. One was the notion of your failure quotient, failing forward, but failing as fast as you can so you can learn the principles of how to succeed. And also obviously going for no, having that no goal. And I set up, it's funny, with a lot of my one-on-one clients, I will actually ask them, how many no's do you want to get per week? What is your no quotient? Because don't go for yes, and the example I give, Andrea, is this. If you're in network marketing and you're looking to enroll one person a week, which is very legitimate and very easy to do if you have the numbers there, and you have 3 calls set up on a Monday, and the first person says no, second person says yes, third person says no. Well, guess what? You hit your goal. So naturally, what someone's going to do is they're going to take their foot off the gas because they've hit their goal and it's Monday. So they start slowing down, and you're basically stopping that forward progression and momentum. But I reverse that with them. And I say, well, how many no's do you want to get per week? And they say, 20. And I'll say, great, let's use that same example. Monday, first person says no, second person says yes, third person says no. Guess what? You still got your enrollment, but you're still 18 no's short. So what's going to happen along the way as you get those 18 more no's? And they always say, I'm going to get more yeses. And I'm like, that's the concept that people need to understand. And I wish more network marketing companies were teaching this. And it's not like you invented this. It's just, it's just flipping the script. It's saying, yes, it's always so great to hear the word yes, but no is that one word that you need to fall manly in love with, because it leads to yes. You can't always expect people to say yes. So let's talk about the importance of, number one, your failure quotient and having a no goal. How much of a difference maker can and will that be for a network marketer who is really stuck and plateaued in their business?
Oh, well, first of all, I mean, those are, to me, that's the heart of the entire go for no philosophy. I mean, first, your failure quotient, and that's really an important part. And I think sometimes I'm glad that you really picked up on that, because sometimes people will just gloss over that and be like, yeah, I have to fail. Well, if you don't really embrace the idea that you can fail your way to success and increasing your failure quotient, then what happens is you do exactly what you suggested. You go out and start hearing no's, and then you immediately recoil and you immediately say, no, I'm doing this wrong. This doesn't feel right. This is wrong. I'm supposed to be getting yeses, And when you embrace that failure quotient, you remember I'm not on the wrong path, I'm on the right path. Richard always likes to give the analogy of, you're driving down the road and you see the sign marked failure and you think that you're heading in the wrong direction. And so you turn around and go back the other way. No, 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 you're heading in the right direction. You need to stay on the path. So that is the underlying philosophy for this, is really important. And then the no goals are, it's one of these things where it's like, it is a behavioral based approach to achievement. So it's kind of like people sit and they say, well, how am I going to get my enrollments? And how am I going to build my team? And how am I going to go on the cruise this year? How am I going to get the trip? And it comes down to having conversations with people, showing people the products that you have, giving them the opportunity to see that they can also sell those products, and doing that as many times as possible. And so that those behaviors can be translated into setting goals. The problem is when we set yes goals, they tend to limit us. And when we set no goals, it's really based on activity and staying in those behaviors, which is having those conversations, showing people videos, whatever your process may be. And so that is the heart of what Go for No is not just setting yes goals, because we will all, I guess I'm speaking for myself. It's a rare person who's like, I'm just going to 10x my goals. It's like, no, we tend to set goals and then we reach them and stop. And so setting a no goal is the way to kind of hack, if you will, your human nature, kind of process where you get to your goal or get near your goal and you stop. And so it's a really counterintuitive, fun way to do it, where you have those 18 no's. And ideally, and this is one of the things that we don't even talk about in the book, but ideally it's like by setting these no goals, the whole idea is like, make it fun, make it a game, take the stress out of it, take the anguish that we feel around hearing the word no, and just focus on the activity without being so attached to that result.
So what would be your biggest piece of advice to that network marketer, again, that maybe they haven't been taught this, because maybe they're being taught like the normal thing that a lot of network marketers are taught, which is make your list of your family and friends, who I believe you should never prospect. You never want to prospect friends or family in any business. You want to keep those relationships where they are. And they're hearing a lot of no's, and they're not getting off to quote unquote the start that they thought they were going to. What is your message, and what is your best piece of advice to that network marketer, that entrepreneur, that online business owner that is listening to this right now, that is not having the amount of calls that they want, that is not getting the right kind of answers, they're not closing enough sales? What's your best piece of advice for that person to keep going forward?
I have so many pieces of advice. I guess the biggest piece is you've got to give yourself more permission to fail. And by giving yourself permission, I mean like really nurturing that in yourself. I think most people, especially when they're not having success, what they do is they berate themselves for their lack of success. They see people who are doing well, who are winning the awards, and it's like, why can't you be like more like this person? And instead, my advice is treat yourself like you're an 8-year-old learning to ride a bike. And we didn't worry about what other kids thought of us. We just had this like overwhelming desire to get on the bike and figure it out. We knew we were going to fall off and it was going to hurt, but like the end of that process was going to be so worth it. And we gave ourselves permission to look stupid in our own minds, like in our own way, and just go for it. And I think that people need to give themselves permission to fail and give themselves permission to be bad a lot, and be okay with that while they work through this process, in order to get okay, in order to get good, in order to get great. That's how you move through that process. I think too many people are stuck in the, I'm not good at this, and why can't I just be more like these other people? They've just got to embrace those failures and learn from them and keep going.
So as we wind down, obviously, I want you to tell people where they can get the book, but also how can people connect with you on social media? Because I know that, we funny enough, we ended up connecting on LinkedIn. And the backstory behind that was I was giving my network a list of my 5 favorite books that have really helped me. And obviously yours and Richard's was one of them. And you ended up liking and commenting on my post. We ended up connecting, and obviously we've been having conversations ever since. So the importance of being connectable is so important. And everyone thinks that certain people are untouchable. Oh, this person isn't going to want to get on a call with me, or I can't reach out to them. But again, that's a story that we're all telling ourselves in our head. So what do you have that you're currently working on, you and Richard, with Go for No, and any new products or services or ways that you're helping people? But also, most importantly, how can people connect with you online just to learn more about Andrea and Richard and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, well, thank you. We're pretty well branded, Scott, for Go for No. So it's on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Go for No. LinkedIn, I think it's LinkedIn/in/Go for No. So and Facebook, I have a Go for No Facebook page. So if you Google Go for No, you're definitely going to track me down. The thing that we continue to, that I'm excited about, that I will continue to really work on and promote this year, is our online course. For years, we had physical products, CDs and DVDs, and of course those all got phased out. People were like clamoring and in 2017 going like, I can't believe you guys don't have digital downloads of stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to get stuff online. So we last year put together an online course. I'm really happy that we've got that up, that people can come in. It's at a great price point, and they can come in and learn not just what's in the book, but all of these philosophies, the mindset stuff, the strategy stuff that we talk about. And we do a Go for No challenge, which is really fun. In fact, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to do for our private Facebook group, which is part of the course, do a 21-day challenge. So it's just fun. And I so love and believe in this message. It's just an absolute passion of mine. And probably because when Richard first taught it to me, I didn't think that I didn't think I had a big issue with no. And then when I got really honest, I realized that I didn't like to hear no. And so it's been transformational for me. And it's one of the reasons why I love teaching it.
Well, it's so important to, and again, as the book says, yes is the destination, but no is how you get there. And it's something that I'm not going to stop talking about. I'm not going to stop recommending your book, because it's been transformational in my personal growth, but also the growth of my business. So I first just wanted to thank you and Richard so much, for putting out this absolutely gem of a book that helps so many people. But most importantly, I just wanted to thank you for giving your time, your energy, your expertise, your love, and everything that you're bringing to this episode for my listeners. And my final question to you before we sign off is, what does success mean to you?
That's a great question. Definitely, I have learned, for me, success is freedom, and it's having options. And having Go for No, having our own business has allowed me to have a tremendous amount of freedom, do some crazy fun things that I would never have been able to do. Like Richard and I spent 3 years writing a fictional paranormal suspense series, a dream of ours, because at our core, at our heart, we're creative writers. And so, success is freedom for sure.
I love that. Freedom is everything, and that can be time freedom. It could be monetary freedom, but all of those things are definitely intertwined, and they're all related to each other. So Andrea, thank you so much again for spending these last 40 plus minutes with me and my audience, giving them so many takeaways. And obviously I will leave all the information of how people can connect with you in the show notes, so they can at least pick up the book, but they know that they can reach out to you and give you obviously a little shout or a takeaway, or even connect with you. So thank you so much again for being here today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I could have talked to you for hours, Scott. So thank you.
You're so welcome. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And as always, take a screenshot of this as you're listening to it. You can post it on Instagram, obviously at Go for No, and at Scott Aaron LinkedIn on Instagram, and share your takeaways. Message Andrea, let her know what this episode meant to you. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your days, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again so much for checking out this week's episode. And if you can, head over to iTunes, search for Network Marketing Made Simple, leave me a 5-star rating, basic review. I would be grateful for all of the support you guys can give me. And again, if you'd be interested in learning more how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your business, your brand, and your bank account, head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net. Fill out the form for your free 15-minute discovery call so I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can work together. And again, thank you guys so much. Grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time.